Hi, everyone. Jim Flint here on an automotive advertising podcast, kind of the sports edition. It is the morning after the Super Bowl. And so we are going to catch up with some of the activity that transpired on the commercials. And that's how we connect the dots here at Local Search Group. I started my career out at Nike, love sports. You can see the football helmets in the background. And this year I got into the business a little bit. Well, it wasn't a business. It was a prediction effort that I made. And I got a lot of comments on YouTube Shorts. And I'm going to have to start this one out before we look at two Super Bowl commercials that I want to review with you with the sincerest of apologies. I don't think I possibly could have been any worse at what it was that I predicted in the several weeks leading up and to and through the actual Super Bowl. Let's take a look at the actual bracket. And I'm not going to highlight every pick that I made, but let's just go week by week. The first thing that I said when I tried to predict the Super Bowl at the beginning of the playoffs was that the Chargers were going to beat the Chiefs in the second round. Well, they lost. And when the Texans won, my hometown team, they didn't make it past the Chiefs. So when I looked at Pittsburgh and Baltimore, I believe I got Baltimore correct. Denver and Buffalo, I got that one correct. But then I said that the world wanted Buffalo to win and they would get past Kansas City and make it to the Super Bowl. Of course, I picked against Kansas City again and they won. So by the time we got to the Super Bowl last week, I picked Kansas City to win it all. Of course, they lost. They were down 1 point, 34-0. I was thinking, how is that even possible? But it happened. So maybe the thing to remember is not to necessarily go with my sporting picks. I looked at it and thank gosh, I was not investing actual dollars and spending actual money. I, like the rest of America, wanted Detroit to win. And when I saw them lose in the first round, no matter how good Jaden Daniels was, that was just simply a heartbreaker. And I actually had Detroit going the entire way. And I didn't expect the Eagles to make it out of the first round. They looked ripe for an upset. I didn't realize Green Bay wasn't going to show up in that first round game in Philadelphia. And then with the home field advantage later against Washington, I did pick Philadelphia at that point to make the Super Bowl, but I really had them losing to the LA Rams because I thought Matt Stafford, the coaching expertise, and the running back were going to take care of business. Earlier, I thought that just like the coach of the Detroit Lions said after the game of the Lions versus the Vikings, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Turns out the Lions and the Vikings didn't see anything but a trip home. So this has arguably been one of the worst years ever in terms of my predictive capabilities. It's something I enjoy doing, but I think in this particular instance, I was certainly leading with my heart, wishing, hoping that things were going to be different. As it turned out, we got a rerun. And last year, 130 million people watched the Super Bowl. This year, early estimates show that 113 million people watched the Super Bowl. So it's down off of what you would otherwise call an all-time high. And that certainly is understandable. You know, people tune in. The Kendrick Lamar halftime was interesting. We're not going to look at that today. But what we are going to look at, we're going to take a look at a list that somebody created of the top 10 funniest Super Bowl ads. I'm only going to take a look at two of them. One of them that comes in at number 8, let me share this with you on my screen, is a good one from Uber Eats with Matthew McConaughey. Here we go.
It has been a banner year for the National Football League. Or should I call it the National Football League? From the very beginning, football has been a conspiracy to make us hungry.
And we'll call this a pigskin. Make people crave bacon.
Bacon.
Everybody loves bacon.
I love bacon.
They do
Love the
anything to
cameo
sell
with
food.
Kevin Bacon.
Coach, how
How
come
can
we
you beat
only
that?
play on Sundays?
Because nobody's eating ice cream Saturdays, kid.
Jeez.
So the Packers were named after meat packers.
So what should we call the fans, Coach?
Kind of playing the Vince Lombardi role
Why do you
here.
think Buffalo got a team?
These wings deserve a team.
Yeah. They could have got a good team name for Buffalo, Bill.
Buffalo.
What do you think?
In their biggest game? Come on.
Our
Buffalo
championship
what?
will be a Super Cup.
Can't eat out of a cup, Ted. But a bowl? How about a Super Bowl?
And we'll start naming players after appliances.
Hey, Coach, do I have to be called refrigerator?
Yes.
Mike
And Peyton,
Ditka.
he was a beef salesman.
Omaha!
Steak.
Omaha!
Steak. And they're still playing us. This year, we're not even hiding it anymore. We have Super Bowl mix. For the halftime show presented by an apple. In a stadium named after
A salad.
With Martha Stewart.
Matthew.
Yeah. Hey.
Sorry, sir. You want me to make a movie about a football conspiracy?
Yes.
No.
Come on, Greta.
No.
Bacon's in.
Everybody loves bacon.
No one believes that football is just some conspiracy to sell
Food! When football makes you hungry, order Uber Eats.
Not bad. So, one of the things when I worked for Nike was you wanted to have an advertising spot that was authentic, innovative, and performance related. So, the thing that they did here, remember the brand is Uber and they want you thinking about the possibility of food. They connected with the authentic football fan in a way that most people can't. They took an A-list actor, Matthew McConaughey, who loves and knows the sports. So he can actually channel the energy through the different coaches that they represented through the years. I mean, that was George Halas, Mike Ditka. And then they took the essence of the NFL for people that are historians, kind of like myself. So if you want to say old school, it's kind of like an old school, new school combo that focused on food while being authentic to the game that it was being played in, because they talked about players too, like Refrigerator Perry. And then they brought it all back to the boardroom and said, hey, let's call this thing the Super Bowl. So they kind of made it feel nostalgic, seem authentic, A-list acting as he played different parts of famous coaches throughout the year. And every single time they brought it back to food. It was just an amazing execution as far as Uber Eats is concerned. I'm sure we'll see that well into the future. And it was, in my opinion, one of the 10 best, probably one of the top 2 or 3 that I saw yesterday. So let's take a look at one more before we sign off on this particular episode. I'm going to go ahead and make sure I've got the timing right. There are some wild ones out there in terms of the Dodge Ram. That happened to be one of my personal favorites, probably because I am in the automotive industry. I'm trying to find the exact correct spots. They had some wild ones. I'm going to finish off this one, and then we'll jump into what was ranked the number 4 funniest Super Bowl advertisement by one of the podcasts out there. Here we go. That is not the motion. This is it. I mean, this has Game of Thrones vibes to me.
Tastes like chicken.
Next, he took the Ram Charger deep into the woods to flex his artistic muscles. Then he fired up the Ram RHO for a little joyride.
And the creative team had to love this one with all the...
What about the 3 bears?
This is my story.
But yeah, the bears were there.
Oh, look at that.
And they all lived happily ever after. Sort of.
Number 3!
So when you look at that one, it reminds me of one of the key elements in automotive advertising. They say if you don't know what you're doing, you bring animals and children into the mix. So the creative team went wild. They probably went back to the manufacturer, and I'm not saying that they did, but I'm not saying they didn't. The manufacturer said, let's make sure it's family oriented. Let's keep it fun. And they brought in the children, and I thought it was a really good execution as he's telling the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. A little too much, a little too less, just right in the middle. And so it seems like with the optionality out there in the hyper competitive truck market, they're saying this particular vehicle could be just the right size for you and your family. And so the creative team was doing the volcanoes and the dragons and having a really good time with that. And at the end, they said, well, the dragon isn't really an official animal, so let's get a real animal in there. And so through the amazing opportunity with CGI, they put a bear in the back seat with the children. And so now you've handled the animal issue, the children issue. You've allowed the creative team to get incredibly creative. And I think somehow, some way, pull together a really great automotive advertising spot. Now, the other interesting thing about a great creative team, an excellent automotive advertising spot, is that it doesn't necessarily translate into sales. But certainly the free brand recall on the Ram product coming out of this particular Super Bowl with over 100 million people watching that particular spot should result in some increased brand awareness, likely more shopping going on, and we'll see if the price points are right to be able to translate that opportunity into sales. Well, I hope that you and yours are translating all the opportunity in your market into sales. If you'd like to talk more about automotive advertising, Super Bowl advertising, being authentic in anything and everything that you do, you can reach out to me or my team. My best email address is jim@localsearchgroup.com, jim@localsearchgroup.com. You can leave that in the show notes. And if you'd like to come up to speed with more of what we're doing, certainly I'd encourage you to hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed the show today, I'd ask you to hit the like button. You can also be notified of future episodes. And if there's a comment you have about either of the 2 spots that we reviewed or the horrible predictions that I made, feel free to leave those below. Thanks a lot. And this is Jim Flint signing off with the Automotive Advertising Podcast.